This story begins with a car that most people only dream about seeing in real life, a Bugatti Chiron owned by Alex Gonzalez, a rare and extremely expensive hypercar that represents the top level of modern automotive engineering. After a serious crash, the car was thought by many to be beyond simple repair. But instead of giving up, a detailed rebuild project began, led by creator and builder Matt Armstrong, alongside a skilled team working in a workshop environment where problem-solving is part of daily life. Over time, something incredible happened. The damaged Bugatti slowly started to come back to life. Parts were repaired, systems were tested, and the engine and gearbox were brought back into working condition. In fact, the car eventually reached a point where it could actually move under its own power again. For most rebuild projects, this would be the final victory moment. A broken supercar turning into a running machine is already a huge success. But this project is different. Even though the car runs, drives, and performs correctly in testing conditions, it still cannot legally go on public roads. That means it cannot receive a number plate, and it cannot be officially registered. This creates a strange situation where the car is technically working, but legally stuck. The reason for this is not a single problem. Instead, there are multiple barriers, each one needing a different solution. Some are mechanical, some are electrical, and some are legal. And as the team discovered, the final barrier is not even about engineering at all. It is about approval from the original manufacturer itself, Bugatti. This creates the main tension of the entire story, a fully working hypercar that still cannot be used. What stands between success and failure is not just tools or parts, but rules, systems, and decisions that are outside the control of the builders. After the rebuild reached a working state, the team tested the Bugatti in real conditions. The car started, idled, and even drove smoothly through all gears. Temperature readings stayed stable, and the gearbox performed as expected. From a mechanical point of view, the results were extremely impressive. Many rebuilt cars struggled just to start properly after a major crash, but this Bugatti was already performing like a functional supercar again. However, even during these successful tests, a hidden issue reminded everyone that the project was not finished. Small warning lights and system checks still appeared on the dashboard. One of the early problems came from the hydraulic gearbox system, where a fuse connected to the pump system showed signs of instability. The system was working, but it raised concerns that it might fail again under stress. This is where the reality of rebuilding a hypercar becomes clear. In normal cars, small issues may not stop the vehicle from being used. But in a Bugatti, every system is tightly connected to safety and performance controls. Even a minor fault can prevent the car from passing official inspections. The owner, Alex Gonzalez, had not driven his car properly since the crash. When he finally saw it moving again, it was an emotional moment. Sitting inside a car that once caused a traumatic accident is not easy, even when it is fully repaired. The fact that the car now worked again was a huge step forward, but emotionally and legally, the journey was still incomplete. At this stage, the project reached an important realization. Fixing a supercar is not only about making it run. It is also about passing strict legal standards before it can return to the road. And in the UK, that means passing the IVA inspection, a strict test required before any heavily modified or rebuilt vehicle can be registered. Even though the Bugatti looked finished in many ways, the real challenge had only just begun. Point when the first major obstacles blocking the car from getting a number plate was a safety system issue. The airbag warning light remained active on the dashboard. At first, this might sound like a small problem, but in reality, it is a serious issue that directly affects road legality. The airbag system depends on multiple sensors and components working together perfectly. Even one incorrect reading can cause the system to fail its safety checks. In this case, the issue came from a pyrotechnic fuse system, often used in modern cars to protect electrical circuits during crashes. This part was similar to components used in other vehicles from the Volkswagen Group, which shares some technology across brands. That a replacement part was installed, but the warning light did not disappear. After investigation, it turned out that the replacement part had already been activated in a previous crash. From the outside, it looked fine, but internally it was no longer functional. This created confusion and wasted time in the repair process. This kind of issue shows how difficult it is to rebuild modern supercars. Unlike older cars, Where parts are purely mechanical, modern vehicles rely heavily on electronic systems and hidden sensors. A part can look perfect but still be completely unusable. Even though this problem may seem simple compared to engine rebuilds or structure repairs, it actually has a big impact on the entire project. If the airbag system shows a fault, the car cannot pass inspection. That means no approval, no registration, and no road USE to SO. What looks like a small dashboard warning is actually a legal barrier. It is one of the small obstacles that must be solved before anything else can move forward. And in a project as complex, even small delays can affect the entire timeline as the rebuild continued. Attention moved to more visible parts of the car. One of the most important decisions made during the project was that the car would not simply be restored to factory condition. Instead, it would be rebuilt with custom-designed front-end components. This included custom headlights, a redesigned bonnet, new windscreen glass, and specially manufactured front panels. These parts were not simply replacements. They were redesigned elements built specifically for this version of the car. This decision made the project more creative, but also more complicated. In normal repairs, original manufacturer parts are used to ensure compatibility and legal approval. However, in this case, the team wanted the final result to reflect the identity of the owner and the unique story of the crash and rebuild. This meant moving away from standard factory specifications. This is where complications begin. When a car is significantly modified, it may no longer match its original approval documents. That creates issues during inspection, especially when trying to pass strict road legality tests. Even if the car is mechanically perfect, modified bodywork can raise questions during certification. The challenge becomes balancing creativity with compliance. The builders want the car to look unique and special, but regulators want the car to match safety and manufacturing standards. These two goals do not always align. During this phase, the rebuild became more than just a repair job. It turned into a design project, an engineering challenge, and a legal puzzle all at the same time. Every new part had to be considered not just for appearance or performance, but also for how it would be viewed during inspection. At this point, the project was no longer just about fixing damage. It was about creating a new version of a hypercar that still had to prove it deserved to be on public roads. As more progress was made, the team started to realize that mechanical success was no longer the main challenge. The real difficulty now came from approval systems and legal requirements. In the United Kingdom, a rebuilt or heavily modified vehicle must pass a strict inspection known as IVA before it can be legally driven on public roads. The IVA test checks everything from safety systems to lighting, emissions, structural integrity, and more. It is designed to ensure that any vehicle on a road meets minimum safety standards. For a project like this Bugatti, passing IVA is not just a formality. It is a major milestone. Even small faults can cause failure. A warning light, an incorrect sensor reading, or an unapproved modification can stop the entire approval process. That is why the airbag system issue became so important. It was not just a technical fault. It was a legal barrier at this stage. The car had already proven it could drive. It had already proven it could perform under real conditions. But none of that matters if it cannot pass inspection. This creates a frustrating situation where engineering success does not automatically lead to legal approval. The team also had to carefully document every change made during the rebuild. This includes parts replaced, systems modified, and structural repairs completed. Without proper documentation, approval becomes even more difficult. This phase of the project shows a different side of car rebuilding, one that is not about tools or parts, but about rules, paperwork, and regulations. It is a reminder that modern cars exist not only as machines, but also as legal products governed by strict systems. While the workshop saw progress every day, the paperwork side of the project was just as important as the mechanical side. As the project moved closer to completion, one final truth became clear. The biggest obstacle was not mechanical or even legal in the usual sense. It was approval from the original manufacturer itself. This is where the situation becomes more complicated than a normal rebuild. The company Bugatti maintains strict control over how its vehicles are repaired, modified, and presented. When a car is heavily damaged and rebuilt in a non-standard way, the manufacturer's approval can become a key factor in whether the car is recognized as safe and legitimate. This creates a unique challenge. Even if independent engineers and inspectors approve the car, the manufacturer's stance can still influence final acceptance. In this case, the rebuilt Bugatti is not just a restored vehicle. It is a heavily customized version of a hypercar that originally left the factory in a very specific condition. That is why the final obstacle is not something that can be solved with tools, welding, or replacement parts. It requires communication, agreement, and official permission. Without that approval, the car may never fully achieve legal status in its modified form. This is also where the emotional side of the story becomes stronger. The builders are not just repairing a machine. They are trying to bring back a dream car that carries personal meaning for its owner. But at the same time, they must respect the rules and authority of the company that built it. This tension between creativity and control is what makes the final stage so interesting. The car is already capable of driving, but it still needs permission to exist in its final form on public roads as testing continued. The rebuilt Bugatti showed more signs of success. Systems stabilized, performance improved, and the car became more reliable with each test drive. From a workshop perspective, it was already a victory. The team had taken a crashed hypercar and brought it back to life in a working condition. But emotionally, the situation was more complex. The owner, Alex Gonzalez, had experienced trauma from the original crash. Sitting in the same car again required trust, not just in the machine, but in the entire rebuild process. Seeing the car move again was a powerful moment, but it also reminded everyone of what had happened in the past. Meanwhile, the builder Matt Armstrong continued pushing the project forward, focusing not just on performance, but also on finishing the remaining obstacles. Each small fix brought the car closer to legality, but the final goal was still not reached at this stage. The project became a combination of engineering, law, and human emotion. It was not just about whether the car could work. It was about whether it could return to society as a fully legal vehicle. The tension in the story comes from this gap between working and approved. The car exists in a strange middle state where it is alive mechanically, but not yet accepted legally. Now the project stands at its most critical point. The Bugatti Chiron rebuild is almost complete, with only a few remaining obstacles standing between success and failure. Each problem has its own solution path, but all of them must be solved before the car can receive its number plate. Some issues are already being fixed, like electrical faults and sensor errors. Others involve custom parts that need careful adjustment to meet inspection standards. But the final and most important challenge remains approval from the manufacturer and completion of the legal certification process. The situation creates a powerful question. What defines a finished car? Is it when it runs and drives perfectly, or is it when it is legally allowed on the road? In this case, those two definitions are very different. This story shows that modern supercars are not just machines. They are part of a system that includes manufacturers, laws, inspections, and strict safety standards. Even when a car is fully functional, it still must pass through layers of approval before it can be considered complete. For the team, the finish line is now very close. But as history has shown, the final steps are often the most difficult. One small issue, one missing approval, or one unresolved requirement could delay everything. Still, the progress so far proves one thing clearly. Even the most damaged hypercars can be brought back to life with enough skill, patience, and determination. And in this case, the story is not just about rebuilding a Bugatti. It is about proving that even the most complex machines can be given a second chance as the final stages of the project approach. The focus shifts from building and fixing to proving and validating. Every system in the car is now being checked not just for performance, but for compliance. This means a Bugatti must behave exactly as regulations require, not just as a high-performance machine. At this point, even small details start to matter more than ever. A warning light that appears for a few seconds, a sensor that reads slightly outside expected range, or a component that does not match factory documentation can all become serious problems during inspection. This is why the team continues to test and retest every system in the car repeatedly. The pressure also increases because the finish line is now visible. The car is no longer a broken project in progress. It is a nearly completed hypercar waiting for final approval. This creates a strange mix of excitement and stress. Every improvement brings relief, but every new issue feels more critical than before. For Matt Armstrong and the team, this stage is about discipline more than creativity. Earlier parts of the project were about rebuilding and problem solving. Now it is about precision and patience. There is very little room for experimentation anymore because the goal is no longer just to make the car work. It is to make it officially acceptable for the road. The car itself, the Bugatti Chiron, represents one of the most advanced engineering systems ever built in a production vehicle. But this rebuild shows something equally important. Even the most advanced machines are still subject to rules, paperwork, and approval systems once they leave the factory environment, and that is where the final tension builds. The car is ready. The team is ready. The owner is ready. But the system outside the garage still has a final say. As the final inspection requirements come into focus, the importance of documentation becomes even more obvious. Every part that has been replaced, repaired, or modified must be properly recorded. This includes not only mechanical components, but also electrical systems, safety systems, and structural elements. This documentation is essential because it proves that the car has been rebuilt responsibly. Without it, inspectors cannot verify whether the vehicle meets safety standards. In many ways, paperwork becomes just as important as engineering work at this stage of the project. One of the biggest challenges is that the car is no longer identical to its original factory condition. While it still retains its identity as a Bugatti Chiron, it now includes custom-built parts and modifications that were necessary during the rebuild. These changes make the car unique, but they also complicate the approval process. This is where the difference between restored and rebuilt becomes important. A restored car aims to return to original condition. A rebuilt car may function perfectly, but still need additional approval because it no longer matches factory specifications exactly. This distinction plays a major role in whether the car can pass final inspection. Throughout this process, the goal has never just been to fix damage. The goal has been to bring a broken hypercar back into a usable, legal, and safe condition, while also respecting the creativity and individuality of the rebuild. The tension between originality and modification is what makes this project so unique. It is not just about restoring a machine. It is about redefining what that machine becomes after a major transformation. And as the final approvals approach, everything now depends on whether the system outside the workshop accepts that transformation. At this stage of the project, the emotional weight becomes just as important as the technical progress. For the owner, Alex Gonzalez, the car is not just a machine. It is a reminder of a moment that changed everything. Driving it again, even in controlled testing, is both exciting and deeply emotional. Seeing the car move after so much damage creates a sense of disbelief. It is difficult to imagine that something so complex, so expensive, and so heavily damaged could be brought back to life again. Yet here it is, functioning and responding almost as if nothing happened. For the builders, especially Matt Armstrong, the project represents more than just content or engineering success. It is a test of skill, patience, and persistence. Every obstacle overcome is a reminder that complex problems can be solved step by step, even when they seem impossible at the beginning. However, the final stage of the project also brings uncertainty. No matter how well the car performs in the workshop, the final approval still depends on external authorities. That means the outcome is not fully under control of the people who built it. This creates a powerful contrast between effort and outcome. The team can do everything correctly, fix every issue, and prepare the car perfectly, but still face delays or rejection if even one requirement is not satisfied. This is why the story resonates so strongly with viewers. It is not just about cars. It is about effort versus systems, control versus rules, and passion versus regulation. These are challenges that exist in many areas of life, not just in automotive rebuilds,